So this is what, 30 minutes or 60 minutes? 30. Okay, 30. Can be any, just might do it, just me. So we'll have a discussion of the economics of artificial intelligence, because everyone hears a lot about artificial intelligence, but there's a lot of misinformation out there, and the news media also scares people about AI will take away jobs and things like that. And a lot of that isn't very accurate, because the issue is much more nuanced than that. So that is something we will talk about today. Very basic definition most of you are familiar with, but just in case. What is artificial intelligence? Software that improves and learns through greater use and data exposure. It gets smarter and smarter. Software is not getting smarter through use, it's not artificial intelligence. Still a pretty broad definition. And why is AI hot again now? It was hot 25 years prior, and then people forgot about it for a long time. And then around 2016, it started to get hot again. Well, two mega trends that feed into AI advanced quickly, and in a way that observers were not paying attention to. One was parallel computing, because serial computing, like what we have on our PCs, does not process the neural networks that run artificial intelligence very quickly. Whereas NVIDIA's GPU became effectively a form of off-the-shelf parallel computing, and was a product that NVIDIA did not even address for the AI market. They targeted video games, but they got very lucky in that it's something AI can run on as well. So that is extremely lucky, but parallel computing is now something you can buy inexpensively. And the other is big data. AI learns through more and more data. And the amount of data we have is much more than 3 years ago, and it continually rises. So these two trends, completely unrelated to each other, different companies with different people working on them, converged at the same time to make artificial intelligence, which seemed very far away in 2015, now a reality that is percolating into a lot of things. Now, one very important thing to keep in mind, for any technology, any technology, always remember that it's exponential, not linear. Humans think in a linear sense. As you can see, the exponential trend looks like nothing is happening for most of the time. It's behind the linear trend for most of the time, and only at the very end does it really shoot ahead, enabling people to be surprised unless they were following the exponential trend very closely. And AI is a function of two exponential trends, of those aforementioned two technologies, not one. To give you an idea how quickly AI is advancing, one of the stealthy things that happens is that whenever a type of AI succeeds, it gets called something other than AI. And to understand this, we'll very quickly walk through the history of how this has kept on happening. In the 1980s, people said, when an AI defeats a human at chess, humans are obsolete. 1997, some of you may remember, there's a picture of Gary Kasparov losing a chess game to an AI, and don't just look at his face, look at the face of the people in the audience too. They were told, oh, humans are obsolete when an AI defeats a human at chess, so look at their expression. That was 1997. It came in the news for one day, next day something else came in the news, people forgot about it. They said, well, chess is too easy, let's find a harder game. Jeopardy. Jeopardy is a more difficult game because you have to understand the sentence and articulate the answer a certain way. Well, in 2011, this I'm sure everyone remembers. IBM Watson defeated the best human Jeopardy players. Those were the two best Jeopardy players at the time, and the AI is winning by a lot. 1 million versus 300,000, 200,000. And even the hardware there is just put there, so it's the same size as the people there for television. They didn't have to put any hardware over there. So the question becomes, well, maybe Jeopardy is too easy. Let's find a even more difficult game. A game called Go, which some people play, but most people have never heard of. It's very difficult, very challenging game. And they said when AI defeats a human at Go, humans are obsolete. And then that happened. A program called AlphaGo from DeepMind was able to defeat humans in Go, and each year it gets better. They have AlphaGo 2, AlphaGo 3. So that's why AI is moving faster and faster. They keep moving the bar higher for what is AI, and when that bar is crossed, they say, well, that doesn't count. People forget about it, become the status quo, and life goes on even though that previous threshold was crossed. All of these things used to be considered AI before. Even calculators. In 1950, a calculator was what was considered AI by Alan Turing. Search engines, speech recognition, virtual assistants, computer vision, autonomous driving. That's why you could say AI is becoming like the air we breathe. We would only notice it if it were gone. If people from the previous boom in AI, which was 1982, before the PC, before the internet, could see us today, they would think we have tons of AI. We have 6 different AIs in our pocket, even. Right? It's just that we don't think that there is. Now, the business of AI, a little bit more relevant. Artificial intelligence as a sector is very high growth, 50% a year revenue growth, but it's still very small. It's only $3 billion a year of revenue. That's very good. Why there's so much discussion of something that's only $3 billion a year? Well, each dollar of AI revenue is very disruptive to the industry that is using it. It may cause $10, $20, $50 of disruption. But the high growth rate is also for sure. So by 2025, you might have 40 or $50 billion of revenue. This market map from CB Insights shows you how many different sectors are being disrupted by AI. These are the 100 biggest AI companies. And everything from agriculture, auto, healthcare, semiconductor, legal compliance, other enterprise applications, retail, media, industrials, has AI companies in it. Healthcare is one of the biggest, upper right-hand corner. But you even see a government, like in the lower left-hand, the upper left-hand side, below the top, there's 6 or 7 government AI companies too. And we'll talk about that. It's one of the big disruptions of AI that we think of. So a lot is happening. These are all the venture-backed companies, but to show how horizontal it is, you see how many different sectors are being disrupted, and no one sector is more than 15% of the companies. Yeah. Now, when we get to the economics of AI, primary topic of this presentation, people say AI is taking away jobs, and that's actually not true, but we'll show you how this happened. Autonomous vehicles, all the rage in Silicon Valley and elsewhere at the moment. You can think about non-autonomous miles, that's what we drive now, the blue. And then autonomous miles, green, this is expected. It's not that non-autonomous goes to 0. Autonomous becomes so much that total consumption is very much more. And we may wonder, how can that be? The traffic is already terrible. How can there be 3 times more driving? That's impossible. That seems unthinkable under current conditions. But, well, if the Uber is autonomous, the price of the Uber is 1/4, because 75-80% of the Uber fee goes to the driver. You might just use an Uber all the time rather than own a car. Therefore, you wouldn't have parking lots. You wouldn't have cars parked on the side of the streets. Autonomous driving means much faster departure from intersections and all that. So consumption rises. Cost trends down towards a lower and lower point, sometimes 0. Consumption rises. That is ultimately the story of artificial intelligence and the economics of what we'll do for anything it automates. So that's why we see consumption keeps rising as cost gets lower. And what does that mean? It means AI for jobs. And the example I gave is the Uber driver's job that went away, right? Or the truck driver's job that went away. So what happens? Here's a chart from McKinsey, and McKinsey is at least, for a business audience. So it shows vertical axis, ability to automate, horizontal axis, hourly wage. And half of the jobs are below the blue line, you say near the lower left-hand corner, kind of showing high automation, and half seem to be more resistant to automation. Now, this does not mean that if there's 2 people, and if you're right on the blue line, that one will be automated and never get a job again, the other will always be safe. It's about tasks. Both individuals will see half of their tasks automated. The person who wins is the one who can do twice as much of what's not automated. Probably for twice as much pay, too, as we'll see. That's the way to think of it. But at least it's a chart from McKinsey, by McKinsey. If you look at the mainstream media, you'll see things much worse. See a chart like this. And whenever I show this, people take out their phones and take a picture of this chart, when in fact, this is the chart I'm criticizing, it's the bad chart. It will show, because for a very mainstream audience, it doesn't even say AI, it says robots. Probably robots will take your job in the next 20 years. Now, there's 2 problems with a chart like this. One that many point out, not just me, and there's a second problem that only I've been pointing out. The first problem is, you can show what jobs are going away. You should also show what jobs are created. That would be fair, so you can see the net change, not only the reduction side of the equation. And it's true, not everyone can become a data scientist or machine learning programmer or whatever, but at least you should show what is being created versus what is going away. But other people point that out too. What nobody else has been pointing out is, if you look at the top few jobs on this list, telemarketers, accountants, retail salesperson, technical writers, real estate agents, these are all private sector jobs. Why are there no government jobs on this list? Why? Are they so difficult that AI cannot do them? Are they too complicated for AI? No, they're not. And that is the crux of the problem, as we'll see. Because even this list was created with human bias, and they only list jobs, and every single government job is somehow immune. You know, look at this, the way this list itself reflects human bias, whereas artificial intelligence has no such bias. Now, hold that thought. I'll tell you more about that as we get a little bit later. Real quick, this chart goes back a long time. Automation of jobs is not new, it's just faster now. It goes back to 1840, the time when 70% of people worked in agriculture. 70%, that means 7 people had to produce enough food for 10 people. 7 people produced food for just themselves and 3 other people. And over time, that went down to 2%. And now the United States not only has these 2% producing food for everyone, and there's a surplus of food, so it's exported. And even after that, the United States actually has a problem of too much food. Which is such a thing, too much food. But where did some of that agricultural job loss go? Well, industry, you see, it rose a little bit through this industrial revolution. Was a certain peak, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, manufacturing heyday, and then a gentle decline. Nowhere near as steep of a decline as the agriculture decline, but loss of manufacturing jobs is supposedly very bad, because you hear about that in the news all the time, even though the agricultural job loss is much more. But it only went down a little bit. So where did those jobs go? Services. Services has only got up and up. 80% of people work in services. And the fear is that AI can automate service jobs, and there's nothing above that, so what will people do? What will below average people do? Things like that. But how true is that concern? Don't only think in terms of jobs, think about output generated. We saw agriculture, 70% produce what requires only 2% to work in. In manufacturing, this is output per worker. They will say in America all manufacturing jobs went to China, but China also has lost 15 million manufacturing jobs. So where are the jobs going? They're just net vanishing everywhere. Output per worker has never stopped rising, it's not even flat. And look how each doubling is even shorter. 26 years, 21 years, 13 years. The output per worker is extremely high, and that's how you get sort of funny situations. In Scotland, there's a distillery that produces millions of liters of whiskey, and they have only 4 human employees. And only 3 of those run the factory. The 4th one is just a tour guide to show people the robot. And so only 3 of them run the factory, millions of liters of whiskey, and it runs, right? Examples like that are abounding more and more, given how efficient this becomes per worker because of the robots. And the same can happen in services. In Silicon Valley, as we know, we may even know some people, there are a lot of companies with $10 million revenue and only 3 human employees, because AI is doing all the other work, right? Even in these market map companies, it's very hard to get a job at one of these companies, these AI companies. You know why? They don't need that many people. They use their AI internally too. I mean, one of these is my clients. They have 85 million revenue and only 62 employees or something. It's great. Now, everyone should aspire to do something like that, as we'll see. Another factor to think about in terms of jobs is job loss from AI is just only at the lower end of productivity. If McDonald's has a robot doing what a human did, it's very easy for someone to say, that robot took this person's job. Because the robot's a little bit more productive than human. The business model of the whole establishment didn't change. But what if an AI is twice as productive than human, 10 times, or 50 times, or 100 times, or 1,000 times more productive than human? Did it take away human jobs? Or is it just doing work that wasn't being done at all in the first place? Because there was no budget to pay for that. Let me give you a very extreme example, and then you'll see how that applies to less extreme extents in other situations. At the Stanford dish antenna, they get a lot of images, and the astrophysicists who work there look at those images for 4 months. They look for whatever little phenomenon they're looking for, takes them 4 months. Then when they got a computer vision algorithm, that algorithm processed everything in 1 second. 4 months became 1 second. That's 10 million times more productive than a human on that one very narrow specific task. 10 million times more productive. Did that take away astrophysicists' jobs? No. Because there's not 10 million astrophysicists in the whole world. There's not even 10,000 astrophysicists in the whole world. Most of you probably never met, right? So instead, what happened is that, well, let's generate more images. We can keep it busy for longer, 2 seconds, 3 seconds even. Let's get images from all over the world. Let's get images from southern hemisphere, different sky. Send us your images and we can process this. And now there's a shortage of astrophysicists because they need to generate more images and they're pressuring to put a second dish antenna up and everything like that because they need more images. Because that whole component of their schedule went away. Just became more efficient. Didn't take away human jobs. And while this is a very specific example, the same computer vision can go to, let's say, medicine, MRIs, CT scans, things like that. If they get processed much faster, the radiologist's time is not used, and it becomes cheaper, which means you can do more of them, and which means you can get the scans. You don't have to already have a problem before you get the scan, and just the preventative aspect of medicine improves. This can happen in a lot of fields, because only when it's slightly more productive than a human is it directly taking away a human's job. If it's much more productive, it's just not the same economics at all. If you call a tech support line, the chatbot comes on right away, whether it's middle of the night, 7 days a week, whatever. You can never hire that many people to do that. You need millions of people to do that, which they wouldn't hire. That's why if you call a government line, it's still 1 hour hold time, because they still use people. Whereas if you call a tech support line, it's chatbot automated. That's the way to think about it. Which brings us to the important piece, AI and the resurgence of entrepreneurship. Coming back to this chart, here's the problem. Most countries, people are trained from the beginning. They say, I need to have a job, and the government has to guarantee that I have a job, and I'll vote for the politician that says they're going to guarantee my job. And therefore, when they see a chart like this, everyone's worried, oh, am I near the lower left-hand corner? Am I going to be automated? What will I do? What will I do? Whereas the entrepreneur, and I mean the real entrepreneur, not just the incrementalist entrepreneur, the real entrepreneur, looks at a chart like this and becomes extremely happy and says, these are the functions I can get done without hiring someone for free. Can I create a business that only uses these functions? Maybe I can get to $2 million revenue just by myself without hiring anyone. I'm using AI for everything. That's the way to think. Because let's say if you have a business idea, let's say it's $3 million revenue, but the cost is $4 million. That's not a business because it's loss-making, right? It's not a viable business. But if you can use it and lower the payroll costs or lower other costs, and that $4 million of cost becomes $2 million, even though the revenue was the same $3 million, suddenly you have a business. $3 million revenue, $2 million cost, $1 million profit. Well, it's not a business, became a business because of that automation. And that process always radiates outwards. There are people in Silicon Valley, like I said, 3 human employees, 10 million revenue, and all 3 of those humans are very wealthy, and the AI is located in a tax haven, so the corporate headquarters is in the tax haven, even though the people are not there, and it can keep all the money offshore repatriated, so the AI has bypassed the whole taxation complex as well. And all those 3 humans can just consume from that, even though technically the employer is offshore. All that is possible in artificial intelligence. Another dimension to the whole thing. If jobs are vanishing, what happens to taxes? If, like in California, a human worker is under 50% tax rate, which means the boss has to pay them $2 for them to get $1 in benefit. Well, that's hardly fair. AI is not taxed. Maybe humans are losing jobs to AI only because the human is taxed and the AI isn't. That's not fair. The human's fighting with one arm tied behind the back under 50% tax rate. Maybe that's a large part of the whole problem, right? That's hardly fair. We only automated your job because we don't have to, the AI doesn't take tax consumption, and that's the whole difference of your cost competition. Yeah. And that leads me to the other thing. Are government jobs automatable? So on one hand, income tax is a large part of what makes humans uncompetitive with automation not tax. Government jobs, we saw from that list, why can't they be automatable? Why not? Because if a government job is automated, then by that definition, the taxes needed to pay that would not be needed, and you can pass that tax savings on to the consumer, onto the taxpayer, rather. And that is kind of the pressure that's being exerted. I mean, nobody wants to admit that, but that's what's happening. Because tax collection is being squeezed. It's easier to be an offshore corporation with AI. The loopholes that were available only to the biggest corporations, Google, Apple, are now available to smaller companies. Because AI, because the loopholes are in the tax code, it's very lengthy, boring, hard to find, but AI doesn't get bored, so it finds the loopholes, and therefore these offshore structures are possible. These rules around offshore corporations were made in 1962 and 1971, not that long before AI, so they couldn't anticipate that, oh, small companies now will use this and be headquartered in a tax haven while the humans are over here. So they're squeezing from that end, squeezing from this other end. It's being disrupted on 3 or 4 different fronts right now. Which leads to kind of what will become an inevitability. People don't think this way now, but it's not very far away in years. You know, in the 1880s, they said that heavier than air flying machines were impossible. That was the conventional wisdom. Same thing over here. You have to find a way to port taxation onto AI and away from humans, because then you equalize this, oh, AI is not taxed and the human is. Slight side topic, I've written a whole book about that subject. It's free online at that URL, 450,000 views. Anyone interested in reading about automation of tax and government can read that URL. Then also coming to a large area of my focus, not the only area, is what are the big inefficient pools that can be automated? Government is one, healthcare is one we talked about. Another is asset management. Like most of the returns generated by professional asset managers go only towards paying their own compensation. Like a hedge fund charges 2% of assets, 20% of upside as a fee. That's not justified in the age of AI because most of them underperform. You can, in fact, lower those costs by 80, 85, 90%, pass those savings on to people so that average people can have hedge fund type returns and things like that. And the thing is, that's very overdue, because you would think, why should there be all this duplication? You know, hedge funds have people doing the same work in multiple different offices, but they're all kind of analyzing the same thing and competing with each other. That's very, very inefficient. AI is already in the stock market doing all the algorithmic trades and all that stuff. So stock picking has kind of eroded as a activity and all that, and a lot of it's become much more mathematical. And so, I mean, my co-founder and I, we happen to run a hedge fund among other businesses of ours that delivers high returns and low minimums and very low fees for this reason. And that's something I'm happy to talk to anyone about if they are interested. So in closing, we want to stay on schedule. That is the book that I wrote in the URL on top. Anyone who wants to see income tax automated away and get to a low tax or zero tax future, while most government services cost 1/10 as much because they're AI driven. You can read about that. Like I said, 450,000 views at a Google Talk. You can also contact me at that email address. Coincidentally, as luck would have it, just tomorrow we're having a finance event, like AI in finance, and an expansion of what I've been talking about, our hedge fund. Short notice, but it just happens to be tomorrow. It's a free event at Morgan Lewis in Palo Alto, 3:30 p.m. tomorrow. Anyone interested in that type of subject, interested in the hedge fund, and more Q&A about that, would be happy to see you there as well. So with that, based on whatever time we may have left, we can take 1 or 2 questions maybe. Yes? Yes? You're the only one raising your hand, yeah?
A lot of the jobs that you mentioned that would be created seem to be A lot of the jobs that you mentioned would be created on net seem to be concentrated in like the sector that requires some degree of higher like education or skill. So what happens to the frictional unemployment that's going to occur on like the lower end of that spectrum? Because like even if there is creation of jobs, if it's being created in another area, there are still people who were working in a pre-existing area.
Yeah, the jobs could be created in another area. They're not created right away. It could be 5 years later. It could be in a different country too. All of that is true. The mitigation factor there is you have to also automate aspects of how the government provides safety nets, right? Government provides safety nets, but they're all kind of mismatched. There's unemployment compensation, there's welfare, there's Medi-Cal, all those things. You cannot tax people to provide that. You have to tax AI to provide that and then extend the safety net somewhat. Because that's the cushioning factor there. Because the government has to have a role in retraining people. And you know, not everyone can be a data scientist and all, but there will be a lot more jobs in retrainment, and they'll have to be able to do that. So that's what will be the future for a lot of those people. At the same time, there's always entrepreneurship. If a certain type of lower wage job is being automated, what has always happened, nothing new but only now it's faster, is that among the people being automated, the more enterprising among them says, hey, so my boss is saving all the money. Any job being automated means the boss is keeping the difference, the employer is keeping all that money. Let me compete with the employer directly. That process has been going on for a long time, it's just faster now. And that also has to be facilitated by government policies, because government policies are very